Oh, yeah.
Phenomenal.
Of course he's a Billy
And
Joel
I
fan.
loved it so much. Maybe you love me, maybe you don't. Maybe you learn to, and maybe you won't.
How dare they just shove that in there and not address it? What? Hello, everybody. How are we doing today? My name is May Graves. I am a musician and drag queen who used to preach in the Church of Christ. And while I ended up not becoming a full-fledged preacher, I just preached a few guest sermons and helped lead the youth group. I wanted to be a youth leader whenever I got out of high school. That definitely changed. But despite this, I have like a high interest in evangelical culture and in church culture and religion in general, but specifically Christianity and fundamentalist Christianity. And so I follow a lot of fundamentalist Christian YouTubers. So my algorithm is fucked and I'm constantly seeing stuff by Kristen and Bethany, Girl Defined, by Paul and Morgan. Love following Greg Locke's sermons. He is interesting. I also do follow a lot of YouTubers that do follow the fundamentalist Christian movement, like Zelf on the Shelf, like Fundy Fridays, and especially following the Anti-Bot and Genetically Modified Skeptic. Actually, Taylor, the Anti-Bot, suggested that I should do this because I was kind of talking about doing it, and she was like, no, you should do it. So thank you, Taylor. I will be linking Taylor's stuff in the description below. I love watching her content, and I love seeing the success that's coming from her channel. So go you, Taylor. It's been wonderful to see you grow and succeed. I'm going to try my best to keep this as short as possible, but it is a long video. Today, we're talking about what kind of broke the Fundy Snark community on Reddit, which is Dave and Bethany's video where Dave actually discusses his deconstruction journey, I want to say. We'll see. So for those of you who don't know, Dave is Bethany's husband. Bethany and Kristen are Girl Defined. They're the famous YouTube channel that did wearing makeup in a God-honoring way, that have done a lot of kind of judgmental gymnastics around how to be a God-honoring woman. These are girls that I remember growing up whenever I went to a private Christian school. They're the girl who walks up to you and kind of puts on that voice and says, God really put it on my heart to talk to you today. I just feel it in my heart that I need to talk to you about just a few things. Like, I've noticed what you've been wearing recently. Like, we all know a girl like that who approaches you in a Target. But then again, these are also girls who are three-dimensional characters. I'm not going to fully judge them based off of their look and stuff. They really do have on-camera personas and off-camera personas, and I'm not going to judge them based on just the on-camera persona. That being said, they did a collab with Paul and Morgan, who are other evangelical YouTubers that I also follow very closely too. They did a collab where they spend a day together. And after that, they're kind of, Dave and Bethany decided to do a video kind of just talking and reacting to the collaboration, and it kind of turns into a very real, very interesting talk. I haven't watched the full hour yet. I've watched little bits of the video, and I decided to just kind of use this as a blind react, and I wanted to watch it right now with you guys. So without further ado, we're just going to get into Dave and Bethany react to 24 Hours with Paul and Morgan.
All right, let's blow the lid off this month.
Blow the lid off.
Dave!
I got you on camera smiling in a cute and sexy way when I cursed.
Okay, let's do this!
Come on. It's third time's a charm. We've already restarted a couple times because we hate ourselves.
We were the stiffest grandmas you've ever seen in your life.
Anyway, I'm not going to act out the grandma, but
We're like not stiff people, but we've tried to film this like 3 times and we're not ourselves at all. We're just like this. We're like, and then Paul and Morgan came, and how was yours?
I'm locked 13 layers in my mind castle.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I have no space in here.
Okay, that's because
Are we filming?
we don't ever film together. We need to film more.
We're so bad at this, but we'll get better.
Okay, this was what.
Okay, pause. This reminds me so much of whenever I first started YouTubing. I can find some humanity in this. It's hard to get in the mindset that you're just talking to a camera, and it seems easy at first. Anyway, sorry. That's not what this video is about.
Was when we went out on our very first date ever. my dream, I told you this, and this might be like really forward. On our very first date ever, I told you about like how I thought we were like really special and unique because we were really good friends at that point, and how I thought we could have like a YouTube channel or do something like that. And we've dabbled a little bit.
Tried along the way a little bit.
But it's still my dream. Like, that's my dream, to do like YouTube or social media with you. So anytime we get to, even if we don't do it that often, so we have to kind of get back. This is
That's
so fun.
sweet.
We have to get our YouTube legs back.
You just have so much to offer the world, and I love how we are together, and I feel like this side of me is so much more of like my real self, like the 24 hours with, and because I'm not teaching, like so much of what people see of me on the Girl Defined channel, and it might be just like change it, but it's like
So don't do it.
it's like a different vibe. It's like teaching. It's like I'm a mentor, I'm a big sister. It's a different vibe, but this is really fun because it's just like whenever we are doing stuff, it's more like sharing our life, and I love it. So
That's really sweet. I do have to stop here. There's such a different connection that I see with Bethany and Dave that I really enjoy watching. Like, it makes me want to watch them because there's not as much of an uncomfortable dynamic as with maybe Paul and Morgan. With Dave and Bethany, they're just so much more of a comfort, as maybe weird as it is to meet someone and say, I really want to do social media with this person. Usually whenever you see somebody that you really like, you're like, oh, I really want to marry that person someday, or something like that. But I think it's funny. I really want to make content with you.
All right, with that, let's get into our experience with, what did you say?
it's like, let him know. Convince him.
Oh,
Convince
you want
him
them
to
to
do it,
convince
yeah.
me. Let's get into this. 24 hours with Paul and Morgan. They were here for the weekend, and
Nice.
we took a heck ton of footage. They took a heck ton of footage.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
A
which
ton.
okay. Shout out to Paul and Morgan. They were awesome, and they did such a good job facilitating our conversations and running around with the camera and being very non-invasive about it. And they were very respectful to all of the random stipulations about, don't film our kids and
Don't film our neighborhood. Don't film our
Which you don't
privacy.
see that with content creators a lot. They're
keep
usually shoving
some of
cameras
that
in
and,
faces.
With Girl Defined. Long story short, we couldn't make the schedules work, like even literally over the months, because Kristen is an extremely busy person, and she homeschools her 2 boys full time. They're just extremely busy. We literally could not make the 3 of our schedules work together, and so it ended up being like, hey, we'll come stay with Bethany, and we'll film your life, and then maybe we'll be able to see Kristen a little bit, which they were only really able to see her for that little bit when we were doing the podcast stuff. So it just kind of like morphed. It really wasn't supposed to be a video about like Bethany with Girl Defined and then Dave, but it kind of became a video truly about me and then my life with you.
And I'm really glad. It was a great
not
video.
Yeah,
Like,
I kinda saw
it's better
the-
this way, in
the
my
wheels
opinion.
turning in Paul's head, as
Yeah.
we're starting to have conversations here, at our house and about some of our differences, and he's like, "Hey, Morgan, I think this might be a good direction."
Yeah.
That sounds
And then
just
It's like evolving
like
as they were
Paul.
here.
They were great. Paul and Morgan were both a real joy to have here, and they were up for just about anything. They had hardly gotten here in our house, and I was like, "All right, cold plunge. You up for the cold plunge?" And
Okay, if anyone wants a good time,
they were up for it.
come to our house.
Yeah.
Dave, he'll be like busy working. He'll be like, I've got so much to do, which you were saying. He was literally like, I've got all these
So
big
busy.
projects. I'm so busy with work. And like the moment Paul and Morgan come, and it doesn't matter, anyone that we're like having over for anything, it's like the moment they walk in the door, you're like, Mr. Hostess with the mostest. Like, anyone need drinks, candy? Like, let's go cold plunge. Like,
You going to that thing? We're going to that.
he's
You
the
going to that?
best.
It was great. It was really cool, driving around and just having these conversations with them, and they were great question askers, and
Well, it started with you. I picked them up at the airport. We weren't
Right.
filming at all. We come here, and they knew, like, I had to leave right away to go film with Kristen. Like, we have very limited recording spots because we're both moms, and it's super busy. Like I mentioned, her schedule. So we literally, Kristen and I record like once a month together, and it just happened to be that day. So I was like, I have to go, and then Paul and Morgan were going to come for the last hour, and then they'd come home with me and we'd start filming. So Dave was kind of like, they weren't planning on hanging out with you because you were so busy. But as soon as they walked in the door, you were like, hey. And so it ended up being like this.
It's time for a break.
It was this whole afternoon, like hours with you, that was completely like unplanned. So that was kind of cool.
I feel like I was already planning to go to the cold plunge, though. I don't think I was that busy.
Okay, enough about the cold plunge. I'm skipping ahead.
But if you are, then watch it, and it should be fairly clear that there's some differences that we have and things that came up, and it was a lot of it was some really good conversations. Actually, I think really benefited our marriage in a lot of ways.
In the long run.
She's like, I have faith that someday
No, I didn't mean that.
there will have had been some benefits of said weekend.
I was thinking the long run since that video till now is the long
okay. This is the long run.
This is the long run.
Okay. That's great. And I would say the number one benefit is just honesty, just bringing up the sorts of conversations that that we have, but we hadn't had conversations like we did in the video in that topic. We had very honest conversations in other areas of our lives, but in that specific topic of specifically like the outward facing Bethany and the world and Girl Defined and the critics and all this stuff, we hadn't really gone there for a while like that deeply.
Because we know we disagree.
Because we know there are some disagreements. And
so it's like, why rehash it? We haven't ever gotten to the point where we see eye to eye. So it's like, we know, it's just kind of like we agree to disagree. And that encompasses a lot, not just like how we view in that conversation. It was like the haters, but it's like beliefs, what I do with Girl Defined, the stuff I write about, talk about. We've known we don't see eye to eye convictions wise on some of that stuff. So it can just be stressful to like rehash it when like, why are you going to rehash it? We know we don't agree, so like let's just keep moving forward.
Yeah, well, we will rehash.
Yeah, I will say that the Fundy Snark community really does have a critical eye on Kristen and Bethany, and these are, two girls who are just trying to like, mostly talk about God. Like, yes, they've said like outrageous things that are not okay, but to be kind of in this like sheltered evangelical life, it is really tough to be kind of like thrown in the spotlight. And the number one thing that they tell a lot of content creators is don't read the comments. So like, I really do understand that. While I do think that Bethany should like look inward on a lot of things, I think that it's understandable that she hasn't put a lot of pressure on herself to address the people who disagree with her, because a lot of those people are who are kind of psychoanalyzing to the point where they need a degree to talk about it.
Well, we will rehash it if apparently a small film crew comes to town to watch us. Then we'll rehash it a little bit, which we did, and it was really it was good. It brought up a lot of really interesting good things to rehash.
So first off, I just want to say, like, anyone who's giving Paul and Morgan any grief from that
let's talk
video,
about the grief that Paul and Morgan did.
Like, yo,
let's
they came
talk
to stay
the
with us.
grief.
Like, we got a firsthand look at these people, and we've known that. Like, we've been together with them in person one other time, and we've just connected through like now like as friends long distance because they're just awesome people. But they're so amazing, and they were so kind and genuine and like so full of integrity and like to their word on everything they said. They gave us the final, like say on anything in the video to like have it removed, whatever. Like they are just so awesome. And like as a married couple behind the scenes, it's like we have seen them and they are just so kind to one another. Like Paul is so kind to like taking care of Morgan, and Morgan's like so kind to him. They're just an awesome couple. Like we're genuinely inspired by their marriage and by them.
That's nice to
being
know.
Here.
I was.
That's nice to
inspired by
hear.
Paul. By the time they left, I had a couple thoughts. One was like, I really like them. Kind of like I wish they would stay, that sort of thing. Because I thought they were great. We would totally hang out with them if they lived here and all this. And I thought I was particularly inspired by Paul and the way that he treated Morgan with respect and with care.
Also, I know that I'm vaping. Sorry, pause. I know that I'm vaping. I know that it's probably irritating to people, but if she can drink her Diet Coke, then I can vape. Sorry.
And looked out for her, and I liked their dynamic, and I liked the way they related to each other in a lot of ways. I felt inspired to be a better husband to Bethany. So
yeah. I think that anyone who's giving any grief, or even like, I don't know, whatever the reels they're posting or things they're saying now, it's like people just want to find something about it, but we have like nothing but good things to say about. I mean, I think that's true.
Well, I'm very positive. I'm just very positive about them and about,
After the hard conversation, we've had a couple of hard weeks.
Yeah.
In the sense that like we've just pressed into a lot of this stuff rather than just like moving on. We've just like really been like, hey, it's been more of like let's just like be super honest and like seek outside counsel. We had our literally a few days after Paul and Morgan were here, you had our pastor come over. We literally were sat in our living room for like 3 hours. He was just kind of like a third party listening to like the 3-hour version of what you saw at the dinner table, like, and so much more, just trying to like figure out like, okay, what do I need to change? Does he need to, how can we love each other still? How can we give each other grace? And it's been like one thing like that after another, I feel.
Yeah. So a lot of people are wondering, Dave, to what he sounds like he's deconstructing, to what degree?
Yeah.
And you have people.
Okay, we're getting into it. From what I've heard so far, his deconstruction sounds very similar to the beginnings of mine. I'm real excited. This is going to be the tea. No, the grief. No, yeah. Anytime that I talk about the tea now, I'm going to say the grief. The grief. Let's get into the grief. Grief, baby. Spill the grief.
You have people that are kind of more like, oh, he's a Christian but nice, or he's like not. He's just compromised his faith, or he doesn't have strong faith, or whatever.
Or some people are mad at Paul for like insinuating
mad at Paul for
that you're deconstructing.
Yeah, which I would say in that case, with Paul and I, we also had more private conversations, and so Paul's operating with more information than what you see in the video.
Yeah.
And
That's
so,
great.
Get up off Paul,
It's really good to have that context because like watching the video, Paul, it seemed like almost like a Real Housewives moment where Paul just kind of calls him out on it, but it, knowing that it was something that they've talked about prior, it really does put certain things into context.
So the bottom line is I had a new level of mental crisis that week that Paul and Morgan were here. And it started before they got here with some random men's group stuff I was doing, and as well as certain questions that I was asking. Even while Paul and Morgan were here, I was asking some people that know me pretty well, or what are my greatest weaknesses, and
You were just like, you were
I was
inviting
just
all
going
this
for
criticism.
it. I was inviting a lot of criticism. One of the things that got me through?
What?
For the first time in, 15 years, Billy Joel releases a new song.
Oh yes, that's right.
Oh yeah.
Phenomenal,
of course he's a Billy Joel
and I
fan.
loved it so much.
Maybe you love me, maybe you don't. Maybe you learn to, and maybe you won't.
I was mowing the lawn before Paul and Morgan got here, and I was listening.
How dare they? How dare they just shove that in there and not address it? What? I love that. I want more of this content. You got an hour-long video. Dave! You can't just, not address that. Billy Joel's song. He's the Kelly Clarkson of the evangelicals. He's going to take that away from Mr. Billy Joel.
This song, and I might have been crying. I don't know. And
Because he's a crying man.
Because I'm a crying man.
Me too, bitch.
And it's just such a good song if you haven't heard it. And so I was already in that space. And then we had a ton of conversations with Paul and Morgan and with Bethany about all these things. And I have a lot of differences with Paul, Morgan, and Bethany when it comes to just ideologically and, values, Christianity, all kinds of stuff. So
it's
we
good
had
that
this
he's honest
table
about it.
conversation.
He
That
can
was the
feel
first
honest to
day they
talk
were
about
here.
it.
It's edited, like it was the last thing, but it actually happened earlier.
The first day.
And then the next day, There was more stuff, more conversations, and then pickleball, which, by the way, they absolutely crushed us on. They
destroyed our
they
guts.
ate our lunch on. Yeah, that was some poorly edited content, and I mean that in the sense that it did not give you a realistic picture of what actually happened. They kicked our butts.
Extremely gracious.
100%, and they were very kind and all
Of course, they play pickleball.
But they were very good. They're much better than we are.
Love that.
But next time, we'll see. So then I had more emotional, issues and crashes and stuff, and it had to do with our marriage, and it had to do with like love, and it had to do with faith and God and Jesus and surrender versus, like pull it together and just like, and basically what happened from all of that is there's a lot of different points that I won't get into because it takes so long, but what basically happened is I got to this point of like, I've been circling deconstruction, just to use the term loosely. I'm okay with the term.
I'm not against it.
You're not against it.
I'm not against it at all. I think there's this misconception that I'm against it, but it's more just like when you typically hear the term deconstructing, like I typically think of someone like completely deconstructing from their faith. And yes, I am deconstructing certain parts of my faith, but I personally am still very much like a believer in Jesus and very much think what the, like trying to understand the word and living it out practically is.
Yeah, with deconstruction is a very dirty word for a lot of evangelicals. This point has been talked about amongst all the YouTube channels, but with Bethany, I feel like she has given the idea that she's like against deconstruction, and I think that I guess it's good that she's redefining this for herself, that she's redefining this for herself. So like, at least that's like a good step forward. I don't care about someone deconstructing to the point where like everybody believes like I do, because I as much as I think that organized religion might be a poison, I think that for a lot of people, they need this and they need something to believe in. And I think that I have a lot of friends that are Christian still, like, and they seem to be doing really well for themselves. And so it's just a point of deconstructing more so the culture that they were raised in, that they kind of grew up in, and the culture that they're constantly being subjected to. It's always great to just open your mind a little bit. So it's good that they're kind of pushing back against this cultural idea that maybe you don't have to fall into this Americanized version of Christianity. Anyway, that's my spiel, but I'm glad that she's kind of open to it. It's very surprising for Bethany.
Practically is important, so I don't want to be labeled. I don't really care for the label, I guess, but I'm okay with it anyway. Yeah,
and I'm okay with the term for sure, and I'll often use it. I know it's popular and it's kind of, rings a bell, so it's kind of easy, but there are kind of two different types of deconstruction that I think of when it comes to the popular stuff that is kind of happening in this trend, the trend that's happening. And one is, it's almost like you're consciously deconstructing in the sense of you're actively questioning beliefs and like, is this true? Is that true? And it's almost like you're taking things apart. And then there's the kind of deconstruction where people describe it as pulling a thread and it's just kind of like the whole thing falls apart. It's like you're not even going towards everything. It's just kind of like everything's sort of crumbling, and then you're just in this crisis mode and nothing's left.
And that's
I would
grief.
say for me, it feels a little bit more towards the first one, but I'm sure there's probably a mix. The things that changed for me through the course of that weekend with Paul and Morgan, and actually we were at Zach and Kristen's one night, and there was some conversation there, and through the course of all this, and then these moments of like surrendering, trying to just find my identity in Christ and get strength through that, and to be more emotionally stable and all of this stuff. It basically something
Bethany's
broke
getting uncomfortable
over that week, and I didn't feel tied down anymore to like basically anything that would keep me from fully questioning my beliefs and my faith when it comes to this stuff. And I even found myself wanting Christianity to not be true, just because of my own personal experiences with trying to have it be real in my own life, and just the
I do not identify with that. Whenever I was deconstructing, it took me forever to fully realize the things that I needed to realize for deconstruction to happen. Because most people, I remember growing up and knowing people who were atheist agnostic, and they would always say, yeah, no, I just thought, why am I praying to something and I just don't feel it? And I never really believed it in the first place, and I realized it. For me, it was more so, I was fighting so hard wanting Christianity to be true, wanting God to be, real. And I couldn't accept that. I was working very hard on trying to enmesh my life. I was still considerably someone who believed in Christianity until I was 19, I think. At that point, I was still in a punk band. I had quit preaching, left the church, but still wanted to hold on so hard to Christianity because that was a big part of my identity. And I feel like I worked so hard to work my life around that, to find a belief system that worked for me, where I could still consider myself a Christian, which I guess looking back, it was me thinking that I was considering myself a bad person if I didn't stick with Christianity. But I really had horse blinders on. And so it's really interesting that Dave had a different experience with that.
Just the disappointment that I found where it hasn't, my perspective, it hasn't really seemed to help me. It hasn't really seemed to make me any more of a better husband or a better man. It seems like when I do other things that are more taking charge of my own development, it seems like I improve more. And then it seems like when I try to find my identity in Christ, it just doesn't seem to work. And so I got to this point where it's like, I hope this isn't true, because I don't want to go through life always having to think I'm the worst in order to find the life in Christ.
Bitch, same.
And that whole thing where it sort of requires you to feel really bad, or to at least admit, you're just sort of nothing and you have nothing. And so that's why you need Jesus. And isn't that such great news? It's like,
I was drinking that Kool-Aid. I get it.
Because it's like, this is basically, if it's not working for me, then the answer is always, well, you really need to know God's love more, or you're not trusting him, or you just need to find your identity in him and rest in that. And so it's like, it just becomes another work. Like, oh, I'm not resting enough. Why isn't this working? It's, so there was some frustration there. In addition to all the truth claims and all the things that have been circling for the last 8 years for me, even before we were married, all that stuff has been there. I've been very aware of a lot of arguments and podcasts and people and debates and all kinds of stuff. It's not like I've just been in this community where I don't hear influences. It's like I've known a lot about this stuff.
For sure. This wasn't the last.
And over time, I've read more books, and I've learned more, and I've seen more, and so, but I've felt constrained by myself, my own inability or lack of desire to challenge certain institutions that I'm a part of, or challenge certain communities, because that would throw things into chaos. That would, it would be hard to go to church. It would be hard to be married to Bethany. It would be hard to do a lot of these things. I'm established in Christian community, so it just makes it, because of my own choice to be in Christian community, makes it challenging if I'm gonna basically say, hey, I don't think I'm a Christian anymore. But over the course of the weekend,
I guess I had the privilege of not having to deal with that because I already left the church before I left Christianity. So I can understand that would be hard. I did have a very similar experience being someone who dressed really weird and was trying to come out as a Christian while still in the church or still in a Christian community. But yeah, that must be a whole other can of worms.
Or just being like, actually, I'm not sure this is true. I kind of hope it's not. I say that, but it's like, that's a lot for Bethany to go through.
Well, I mean, I feel like there's a lot packed in there. It's definitely not just been since like the Paul and Morgan thing. I feel like you've had a new level of boldness or a new level of freedom to share those things since that weekend. But like, you've been studying this stuff and thinking about this for like years.
And
That's
in
great.
fact, 1 year ago, almost 1 year ago, because it was the time of Lent, but last year, I had something like this happen where I had all of these, I was like talking to a pastor and I was like, I'm not sure I should be taking communion and whatever. And we had the question of whether to become members and all this stuff. And basically at that time, I was still kind of in this, okay, I can kind of like make the leap of faith. And so I just sort of took this leap of like, all right, I can believe, I don't know it, and I can't, this is not so rational, but I'll just like, okay, that's what faith is. Faith is just kind of, dedicating yourself and trusting and, okay, so
you try so hard.
Say what I believe even though I don't like feel it, because what is belief anyway, and I kind of used just relativism on myself and be like, well, we don't know anyway, so you just might as well dedicate yourself or whatever. And so, okay, all right, I'm a Christian and I can hold this and I can, whatever. And so that happened a year ago, and I stayed in the Christian community, but as kind of like giving assent to this stuff and taking communion and being a part of this. And so that's what's different now. I basically got to a point where I was like, I don't need to hold up any of that. I don't need my friends to think that I'm one of them in this sense. I don't need people on the internet to think. I mean, that's not really as much of a concern, I would say, in some ways, but it's really more like my marriage, my church community, basically the life that I have. A lot of my work has been in the Christian space, so it's just so much of that.
I had a similar situation with being in my high school, because I'd already left the church by like late junior year, early senior year, I think. Having done that, but not being able to leave my Christian high school, I dealt with a lot of, it sucked because that was like my entire, the people that I see every day, and just watching people drop like flies whenever you can see yourself being pushed out, especially whenever you can't leave, whenever you're stuck in that kind of situation where like a lot of your life revolves around the church. It gets dark and it starts to get lonely. So I feel for you, Dave.
Yeah. It feels like I finally got the balls to basically be honest about things that I've thought for a long time. And I have to apologize to Bethany because I haven't always been honest with her. And when we got married, I had already started deconstruction. And I had read quite a lot fewer books when we got married, and had listened to podcasts and stuff, and was already very friendly towards certain forms of progressive Christianity and stuff like that. And when I got married to Bethany, I thought, well, this is going to be a problem because, and I wanted Bethany, and I love her. And so at the time I was like, this is just going to cause problems in our relationship. So I was just like, all right, I believe that the Bible is your word, and I accept this authority, and blah, blah, blah. And I just kind of tried to push myself over the edge to make...
That is such a real thing. Jesus. Oh, Jesus. You guys. It is such a psychotic, and I use that term loosely. I'm not trying to get like, mental health, but it really is a back and forth. A lot of the times deconstruction while you're in a Christian space, again, like my high school, because I was, and even in church, because that was my entire community. That was what I was surrounded by. I was going to chapel every Wednesday in high school, and we would have, all these services and all these worship services, and that's how they get you. But I remember every single time, it was like clockwork. It was almost like every other month. I was trying my best to say, you know what? I'm going to jump back in. Maybe I am going to like cause myself to feel this because everybody else is. And it's so much easier just to like give in and have this idea that, like, you know, maybe I can feel this, maybe I can learn, because you already have an open heart to learn new things anyway. So maybe I'll give this Christianity thing a shot again, just because of almost peer pressure. It's you know, it's this inner toxicity that is, it exacerbates the problem in the end, if anything.
Make it work. And that was disingenuous and a lack of integrity, honestly. And at the time, it was a weak thing to do, and I didn't really know how to like stand up and just say, this is what I think.
It's not weak. It's like, it's fear. It's real fear. It's
people and in myself.
That sucks.
So that's kind of changed, and so I've apologized to Bethany. I said, you know, I'm sorry for selling you a picture of myself that's not been true, and
that's great that they've talked about that.
Making it seem like I believe a certain thing or am a certain way in order to make you feel better, when I'm really not. Mm-hmm. So how's that been for you?
Yeah, I mean, thank you for sharing that. That is a lot to share. Does that feel okay to share? Do you feel okay?
Bethany,
yeah, I feel like I just kind of rammed through the. I just kind of like
that is such like an opposite reaction that I thought that she was going to give. That is such a gentle way to respond to that. That is relationship 101. That was so sweet to ask that, to make sure that he's okay before you continue, because you can tell that he's overwhelmed by all of this, and she is too, but she's putting that aside just to talk to him and say, like, thank you so much for bringing that to me, because that is something that took me forever to learn in my relationship right now. Like, it's so nice to see somebody really taking that initiative. Oh my God, that was so sweet.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, that's like a big deal. So
it's a huge deal. Yeah,
acknowledge that. It's a big deal to acknowledge it, and I mean, I would say it's not something that I would have like. I don't think when we got married I would have thought you were going in this direction for sure. But I think maybe like a year or so into our marriage, just your interests and books and what you like to study and stuff, it was like, okay, I think that it was, you know, I could start to see that coming in. But I mean, we've had conversations about this sort of stuff. I've not been like totally in the dark for a while now, I would say. So I think that's definitely been, I wouldn't say you've been like totally dishonest recently, maybe just when we got married.
Maybe at the very beginning.
Got the girl.
Oh.
Surprise.
Well, it wasn't like the next day I was like, surprise, I'm an atheist. You just did it with an atheist.
Oh my God. Dave.
Yeah, people have a lot of questions about that. Like what I think, what you think, how that works in our relationship. I think that we are uniquely gifted to love each other and work through a relationship like this.
Baby.
I think that even though it's hard for me, it does not, I am not like, I don't know. I have so much love for you, and it is emotional.
Oh.
A lot of
Guys. Oh, I wasn't expecting this to get so emotional. Because a lot of like Christian relationships that I just grew up seeing, like some that I was involved in, they are so almost superficial. But to watch this, you can tell like that there is a connection there, and I feel like it's clear that they've like grown closer through this. And to watch them learning together, like, yes, like a lot of Christian relationships, they don't really know each other that well. Like they kind of learn about each other after they get married, and that's what's happening right now. And a lot of the times it's catastrophic, but it's very sweet to see, and it's very sweet to see them have a strong emotional understanding of where the other is coming from. That is so sweet. That that makes my heart happy. Because a lot of people, like, I wasn't expecting this kind of reaction from Bethany, and I really commend her for kind of putting certain ideas and things aside and learning that, like, you know, this is a part of her life. I don't know. You guys. A lot
of people have wondered and have asked, like, in the questions and stuff, how that is. And I am emotional, so we're just going to roll with it. Or else we'll never finish.
More of this, Bethany.
I think that, like, when I think back to, I think this is something that, like, I really believe, like, when I think back to when we got married, I still look back and it's like, I have so much confidence that we're supposed to be together. And I have so much confidence that we are, like, super uniquely gifted to, like, really love each other. And I think we have a, like, I think that we, and people have told us, like, you know, that we've sought counsel from and stuff, just have been so encouraging and supportive of how we've been able to, like, press toward each other and love each other and have these conversations and not just, like, run away from each other in fear or, like, separate, but we've been able to, like, grow. And even though it's hard, this big difference of ours now, like, I think we love each other more now than we did, you know, 3 weeks ago, a year ago, when we got married, obviously. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, exactly what I was saying. Like, they've grown so much closer. And I think that it's also really cool because I've seen relationships like this where one person might have, you know, just kind of fallen off the Christian wagon, and watching, I don't know, just knowing the fact that, like, a lot of the people in their community are not super, a lot of the time whenever this happens, whenever someone falls off the Christian wagon, most of the community sees that almost as, like, a cancer, and you just got to cut it out. And so they're like, you know, it's the Christian version of, like, dump him. And and seeing this and seeing, like, the amount of care that's taken into this is very sweet. It's very nice. You can tell that, like, they really care about his presence in their lives, the church, as well as Bethany.
And, like, my heart is filled with so much love for you, you know, and I want to be the woman with you. Like, I don't want to be anywhere else, you know, like, I don't want a different man. Like, I want to be with you in this journey, even though it is hard. I want to be with you. But it is hard. It's hard to think, like, I mean, we are going to church together right now. Mm-hmm. And, well, you know, you are leading our family in, like, a morning devotional.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're just more careful with the words. Like, you say, like, this is what the Bible says, this is what the Bible teaches.
Yeah, I can tell Davey, because I'm thrilled if Davey's, you know, learning about the Bible and all that. It's like, it's great, you know. Yeah, but I'll say things like, you know, the Bible teaches that God loves us or something like that, rather than, like, oh, God loves us.
I mean, it's really...
Yeah, I you know, not fully believing the King James version of the Bible and having to preach it was tough because my deconstruction process was a very long process, as I just said, but there were certain things obviously about myself that I wasn't able to talk about in the pulpit, and the amount of times that I had to tailor, like, I talked a lot about peacekeeping versus peacemaking. Mostly, like, I talked a lot in the church about conflict resolution. I focused on so many different things and different aspects of Christianity that just to veer from the obvious stuff. So yeah, I think it's great. And also didn't Bethany and Kristen and Bethany, didn't they talk about being unequally yoked, like being in a relationship with an atheist or with someone who believes differently? Because if they said dump him about, like, an unequally yoked relationship, it's really nice to see that Bethany is clearly growing.
I mean, it's really sweet. I think that that's the thing when you hear about, like, oh, where, like, one couple deconstructs and the other doesn't. At least even having talked to friends and stuff, there can be a lot of like, I don't know, like, even just that sort of stuff, like talking about the Bible or talking about Jesus or church can become, like, super high tension. But I've appreciated just like your maturity in that way of not being like, well, I'm not doing that, or don't, don't teach the kids about that. You've been just like very, at least now, like seeing the value in the community of that, and just the value of at least our kids being there for now. And I think that, yeah, like Davey has such a genuine interest in like God and in the Bible, and I just really appreciate how you are willing to, like, I don't know, feed that interest or whatever. I don't know how you want to say it.
He might bring it up, when or he does. He brings it up every so often. It's fun, It's great to hear him learning stuff, and
that's sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. I think that it's more like, when I think about it, I guess it's more those fears of like, what exactly does the future look like for us and for this? Because at this point, like, we both see ourselves like not, you see yourself more deconstructing, and I see myself not. Like,
and that's
in the
okay.
sense of, like,
That's okay,
I see
Bethany.
myself, like, I just, I don't know. I like being a Christian.
And that's great.
I like that.
That's great, Bethany.
I guess maybe it'll be a competition of who can love the other person the best, and thereby making the best apologetic, the best argument for their view.
It's really sweet though, because I do
That's
have
sweet.
friends who like are in my position of like their husband's starting to deconstruct or whatever, and just like, I just feel like you've been and continue to strive to just like love me so well and be so kind and sensitive and patient, and I am hoping to do the same toward you.
Getting up in the morning and being like, oh, I might not be a Christian. I find a heightened level of like, well, then everything that happens is up to me. It's like my responsibility. Like, if I don't like something, it's on me. It's not
That's tough.
I can't blame God for anything, it's just
Dave, are you saying that whenever you were a Christian, you did blame God for a lot of stuff? Because, like, they always say that atheists, blame God for all their problems, and that's why they're an atheist, is because they hate God. But damn, okay, interesting. Sorry.
And I can't spiritualize things like, oh, maybe God wants this hard thing to be happening to me in order to teach me something and stuff. It's like, if you don't...
I still do that. I'm still, like, I don't believe in God, but the amount of times that I sit there and I think, well, maybe there's a plan for this. Maybe there's like maybe the universe is really trying to tell me something. I'm like, bitch, I don't even believe in that. Like, what? Wow.
Believe in that, and you're not... Then it's just like... oh, I feel crappy because I feel crappy, and whatever. I don't know. Maybe there's a reason, maybe there's not. Maybe I need to eat something, maybe whatever. And maybe I need to confront myself about an issue that I have, and I'm not living
inward
with my integrity or something. And I still very much hold to that. The integrity stuff hasn't gone away. I would say this is a step in the direction of more integrity, more honesty, even more strength in a lot of ways, I would say. And I've been like, well, we can get into some of the comments and stuff in the video, but there was a couple comments in particular that really landed with me, and that I've been taking as fuel to be able to grow and to do a lot better.
I mean,
she has 2 drinks. She has whatever. I said Diet Coke earlier. I don't know, actually. It looks like a cream soda, maybe. She has a soda. And then she pulls out her Stanley Cup. This is a Southern Christian woman if I've ever seen one. Love it.
Just from like wrapping this up, because I know a lot of people are asking questions about this part, like this, like people are asking like, what more are the differences? So he uses language and you don't. It's like,
the cussing should probably be the least of your worries at this point.
Work,
it's more
diva.
of like our difference in our faith journey, our belief in Christ and the Word, and like all of that. And yeah, like it's tough. Like I'm, not going to pretend like I'm some superwoman and just like, oh, it's like, it's hard. And it's just like it is a lot, but I want to, I think I was telling you today, like we have so many things that we, like, even just when I think back to, like, I don't know, dating or whatever, it's like just like the stuff we love to do together, the unique relationship we have. I mean, that's one of the reasons, like, from the beginning when we started dating, I was like, I want to do YouTube with you, because I just, this is going to sound so selfish, but it's like, I love our relationship. And I think we're like a super special couple. Like, I just think we have like a willingness to be real and open and like not putting on a show, and just like, just really like a fun relationship. And I just think that, not in like a teaching sense, but just like in a sharing our life sense, that's something that I just have really loved about us. And so it's like, yeah, would it be awesome if we both just like shared the same faith like super strongly, and just were like, both felt so encouraged by that with each other? Of course, I think we'd both love that, you know, whatever that.
Yeah, being on the same page. Yeah, that'd be.
If I were like, yes, deconstruction, babe. I don't know.
I mean, it might have crossed my mind. Like, hey.
Sometimes the difference is funner.
I'll just have to make deconstruction look absolutely attractive, just like the most loving husband.
So
that's Dave. Dave. He's nasty boy. Oh no! But here's I'm not trying to objectify another human being openly like this, but also like the way that I would be looking at Dave in church, probably, like, as you know, when I was in high school, the way that I would be looking at Dave and be like, you could make deconstruction look sexy, you know? Come on, Dave.
So yeah, I mean, I would say that, you know, in a year, I'm sure we'll have a lot more to say.
Oh man, can you imagine?
I would love to see the future of this.
What is going to happen in a year?
I mean, it's like, I love our kids. I love you. Yeah. I love the life we're building together. Yeah. I have so much excitement for just the family that we've been given, potentially in the future, more, you know, it's like, just like the adventures, like we have so many dreams of like places we want to travel, things we want to do together, just like the kind of kids we want to, it's just all
like
of
going
that.
To Costa Rica, maybe.
It's just so special. So yeah, you know, I think you have to look at your life, and anyone at any time. I mean, there are people who have a lot more in common than the two of us and who are way more miserable, you know? It's like we don't have that in common right now, but the way that I don't know, it's just like queer focus and where you're going and what you're doing. And I just...
Did you just say queer focus?
At least that's what I choose to.
I know what she said.
Okay, I want to say Bethany, by far, the highlight of the highlights of 24 Hours with Bethany was Bethany.
No.
You guys.
Great, of course. And, but I just, and Bethany was, you were stunning. And just.
That's sweet.
The kindness that you showed.
I've said that so much. It is sweet.
Just.
Sickly.
Understanding heart and your ability to handle all of the differences that we have and still speak in such a, you know, just a lovely way about me and about our relationship. It was really beautiful. Mm-hmm. I'm so grateful for Bethany and her. She's really blown me away with just her kindness and her.
Blown me away too. Shit.
And
I love you so much.
You're a hell of a woman,
babe.
She likes it a little bit. Yeah. No, I should. You a little bit.
Here's the deal. It's like, this is my man, you know? Like, if you're gonna, you know, I'm just not one of those wives where I'm gonna be like, I know.
Just a little note. I love that at the beginning of the video, whenever they first started talking about this, she was so far away from him, and now they're slowly, like, just being comfortable on camera too is a thing, but still watching her kind of, her body language change once they started getting into the conversation and once they started getting comfortable with each other and how each other is approaching this in front of the camera. It's very nice to see them kind of getting into a comfort zone talking about this. It's very sweet.
I don't use language. Every time you use language, I'm gonna give you the cold shoulder to show you not. It's like, you're my man. I love you.
Too much fun for that.
I'm gonna, it's like I'm just gonna accept you just like you do for me. I do things that you don't like, and you accept me, and just like, so it's like you can either give the cold shoulder or laugh along and
come on,
fall more in love.
Okay, now I'm just getting sick.
Here, yeah. So here's the
guys.
Oh, it bumped a tiny little hair in my nose.
I'm so sorry.
Oh my god.
Okay, you want to talk about comments?
Yeah, let's talk about. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Okay. I think that is a wonderful face to pause on. Go you, Dave. I think I'm gonna end the video here. A lot of it is them reacting to 24 Hours with Paul and Morgan, which, like, I'm not gonna react to other people reacting to stuff. That seems redundant. But overall, I will say that this is really, again, I've said this a bazillion times already, this is really surprising for Bethany, and also this is a side of Bethany that I have not seen at all, and it really is crazy to see the way that she's reacting to this, because again, just knowing about, like, the way that her and Kristen have talked about things, pertaining to me, my job, pertaining to other people, but pertaining to people who are unequally yoked. Like, it's just very interesting to see this side of her, and I want to see more of this. Like, yes, Bethany and Kristen are very problematic people. These are very problematic people who have said some very problematic things. I find interest in it, though, because, it's already been interesting to see how the evangelical community has been kind of attacking Bethany for her kind of open discussion of sex and sexuality. I understand the frustration with that, but, like, maybe that was a way for her to, like, a jumping point of her to be able to talk about these certain things. Maybe that was another way that she's deconstructing as well, that she might be opening up a little bit, maybe in the wrong ways, but I do love that these two are finding a connection that's not necessarily, like, God ordained, which is it's a connection that's still within yourself, that doesn't involve the other person always. It involves the idea of another person. Dave reminds me a lot of when I started deconstructing, and I deconstructed pretty late for somebody who was into my industry. I deconstructed after I started drag, and to have all of these, to have your entire life be surrounded by evangelical Christianity, by Christianity in general, it's very interesting, especially having a family that's very Christian. I'll go back for Thanksgiving and stuff, and the family that does have me back, it is really, nice to have that. But I am respectful in that point, the same way that Dave, he's still able to vibe with, Bible study and stuff. I'm able to, hold hands while they pray and respect that. And the open listening coming from Bethany is just very... I want to see more of this content. Where is it? I don't know. If they talk a little bit more, remind me. But I might do a part 2. If you want me to do more of these videos, I think that would be very fun. Actually, I had a lot of fun doing this. I hope to add to the conversation. I just think it's very sweet, and I think it's very honest and open. And having watched Kristen and Bethany, for a while obsessively, like, watching them go through this and talk about this, or at least Bethany go through this and talk about this, it's almost like watching, like, one of my kids grow up, watching them learn, it's so sweet. And I've said that 1,000 fucking times, and I'm so sorry about that. But aside from that, that's the video. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. And again, thank you to Taylor for suggesting that I do this. I had a lot of fun, and I want to do more, maybe. Check out my music if you haven't. Ghost is still up there. I'm still working on this second album. And check out my other shit. Check out Taylor's stuff in the description. She goes by the Anti-Bot. She's fantastic. I love her content. It's very well written, well thought out. Opposite of mine. Thank y'all so much, and I gotta go do this brunch. See y'all later. Bye.